Hello again, hope everyone is doing well and is having a good start to the year. For my first video of the year, I thought I'd do a bit of a informal Q&A. These aren't going to be questions like full form questions and answers. These are more going to be things that have cropped up in the past year, whether they be in comments or in conversations I've had with people that I think are definitely worth mentioning. So I'm going to be going through a bunch of questions and just giving my take on all things footy cards. So the first question I get asked is, what should Select do with their releases? Because obviously there's issues with people think they're overprinting, they're diminishing the value of the cards already out there, they're printing too many rookies or things like that. Like, people always have an opinion on what Select should be doing. In my opinion, I think the biggest thing Select should do is make Footy Stars, or the Footy Stars like release, the first release of the year, unnumbered. It should be completely unnumbered, in my opinion, and it should be printed to demand. So how would this look? In my mind, the people who this release is geared towards are kids and kind of more casual collectors. Just look at Team Coach. This is a kind of company that does the no numbering approach, and I think it works quite well, because in that way Select can print to demand. When you number stuff, you have to print a certain amount, and you can't print less or print more, because the numbering determines like the whole quantity of cards. It's based proportionally on how many numbered cards there are in the whole release. Whereas if it's not numbered, you can print hardly anything if there's no demand, and you can print a lot if there's a lot of demand, but you can still print proportionally. So there's still going to be short print cards, still going to be super short print cards. You might still have cards that are numbered which have a population of about 100. They just won't be numbered, because if there's huge demand, you want to be able to bump this number up to meet the demand of those collectors who may not care about like a super rare card. They just want to have their hands on footy cards for a decent price. And that's what this first release should be. It should be locked in at a very stable price. It shouldn't really go above retail whatsoever. It should be very well accessible, but it shouldn't be just completely swarming the market either. You need to be able to print to demand to whoever's out there. I think this would help a lot with the overproduction of numbered cards by Select. Select have really watered down the numbering over the past few years. Like I've said in my previous videos, back in the day, a card numbered out of 40 would be like the best card of the year, where these days in a release like Footy Stars, you have one or two cards numbered out of 40 or 60 or 80 or 100 or whatever it might be. So taking the numbers out of that would serve to level the playing field, I think, and bring a bit more specialness back to the numbered cards. Personally, I think Select should act more like a central bank as well. Let's be honest, they control the whole footy card arena. There's Team Coach as well, and there's a couple other small brands, but Select is really the big dog. So they have a stranglehold on the supply. They can't determine what the demand is, but they can keep prices stable with different techniques. So if there's a huge amount of demand, like there was during the pandemic, you can push out lots of these low numbered cards because people are going to keep swallowing them up. But when there's faltering demand, as we've seen in the past, maybe like 6 months in a year, you can't just keep pumping out these cards, because the market isn't going to keep the prices that you want. So for example, if a card out of 100, if you print 20 of them in the year, they might be a $50 card. But if you print only 5 of them during the year, then it's going to make that a rarer card. It might be a $100 card instead. And this would go a long way to help price confidence with collectors, keep collectors happy, so you're not eroding the value of their collections by pumping out a lot of low numbered cards. Now, I hope that makes sense. It's probably not the clearest explanation, but the way I see it, it's very similar to inflation in the real world. Like, if you print a lot of money, inflation is going to go up, which devalues the currency or the money that people already have. And this is exactly the same in footy cards. So Select should be very clear and calculated with their messaging. I think they should definitely say, look, we're not numbering any Footy Stars. We're only releasing, they could come out at the start of the year, we're only releasing 5 rookie cards of each player, and we're only releasing a maximum of 5 cards under 100 of each player. That way people know straight up what it's going to be. They're not going to be scared of being overloaded later in the year, kind of sneakily, like they have in 2020 or no 2021 was when there was that real surprise supremacy rookie release, and people got caught off guard, and then they lost confidence in buying rookie cards, and that's kind of gone into 2022 as well, in my opinion. So that's a long explanation, but the short of it is that, yeah, they should take more care with their messaging, I think, and be a lot more forthright with it. So after the unnumbered footy stars, you don't really need a second set there. I don't think you really need footy stars prestige. However, with the demand as it is at the moment, you do need something there, because if you just put out the standard kind of like dominance or optimum kind of set straight after the unnumbered footy stars, the standard set would become very overvalued. It would become very expensive because there just wouldn't be enough product going around to keep everyone happy. So at the moment, with this level of demand, you do need one in between. I'm not too worried about that release. You probably just do a 40 stars prestige like release with similar cards that are numbered instead of not numbered. In the standard set, I would call it iconic. I think Select Iconic has a good ring to it. I would make, they know how to make a standard set. I'm not going to bang on about that. I think they should do the DPSs, the 3 tiers like they have, and maybe one other like a die cut kind of rookie card in that release, not overload the rookies. And then after that, have a rookie release, a specific rookie release, similar to Supremacy rookies, but instead of just having the high-end cards, have a bit of a mix. So I'd put a card out of 25, what the green is now, maybe make it a rookie patch signature instead of just a non-signature, non-patch card. So one of those maybe, and then a fit card parallel, very similar to what they have with the Supremacy rookie out of 75. Sorry if my heater's screaming in the background, it's a very loud oil heater. But then with these two Supremacy type cards, then I put a separate pack in that release with the more standard cards. So you take out the Optimum Parallel, the futures, the whatever it might be from the standard set. You can be the same cards, but just put it with the rookie release instead in a pack, and that would help consolidate all the rookies into one, which would really help people like me who just enjoy the rookie cards of each season. And yeah, it'll lead to people not being overloaded with different types of rookie cards coming out at different times. So you'd have the 3 DPSs and maybe 1 die cut in the main set, and then maybe 5 other types of rookies in the rookie set. And like I said, this would be clearly communicated at the start of the year. And then the high-end set after that, whether it be Supremacy or Brilliance or whatever, I'd put no rookies in that, because generally the people who are buying that kind of release are older people. Usually, I'm not sure what the demographic, the statistics actually say, but in my mind, the people, the cards that sell for a lot, there are a lot of the older players, like a Lockett or a Gary Ablett. Those demand some of the highest prices. So it's clearly the older brigade which are holding up those kind of releases. So yeah, no rookies in the high-end set, but definitely keep it. So that would mean it'd be an unnumbered footy stars, which is the most important one for me. And then it would be a footy stars prestige type release, not very important. Standard set, rookie set, with some variation to what it is currently, and then your high-end set. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 releases in the year. I think that would be a great release calendar. So that's question number 1. That took a long time, but let's go into question number 2. How cards could stay stable. So I've talked to the Butters collection a lot about this, and it goes back to my inflation point, where if you keep pumping cards in to the hobby, then the card price is always going to go down. However, as Butters mentioned to me, and it's very true, if there's an influx of people, then this growth is actually sustainable. Like, there's going to be new people to pick up those extra cards that Select are producing. So this is one situation where Select keep just willy-nilly producing out of 100 out of 50 cards, and the prices won't go down. But we're not seeing that at the moment. But yeah, if there's new people, then definitely it could become more sustainable. And Select should keep an eye on this. Like I said before, they should have the market data to know how much to release and what kind of cards to release as well. On to question number 3. Will modern rookies ever be a buy? This is a great question, I think, and it's very easy to think, because I only say the best buys, or pretty much the only good buys in my mind are the older rookie or draft cards. And why is this? I think it's because they're good value, and there is a situation where new modern cards are actually good value. For example, if people who have been buying these modern cards over the last 3 years lose a ton of money in them, they work out that they're very risky and dangerous to invest in, then people could be going away from that in droves and looking for something safer to put their money in. I've seen this happening in the US market where people are saying, oh, I've lost my pants on the modern rookies, so now I'm just going to invest in vintage. I'm going to put my money in Mickey Mantle or Babe Ruth or whatever. But what this leads to is if all this money rushes to an undervalued or safe investment, then that safe investment can become overvalued as well. Just because it's old, just because it's a great player, or has good historical returns, does not mean that it's always just going to boom into the future. So I keep an eye on the market in general, and I look for opportunities wherever they might be. If the time comes where new players' cards, say it's a supremacy rookie out of 25 of a top 10 draft pick and they're $10 each, if that day comes, then I'll probably be buying those up as well, because you do the probability, they've got a 1 in 100 chance of becoming a superstar of the league. Well, it might be worth kind of taking that risk at $10 or $5 or whatever it might be. So that was another great question I got asked. I'm not steadfast. I won't always say that certain cards are the best deals. And even now, certain cards I've got too expensive for my liking. For example, the Buddy Franklin DPS, when it's selling for $400, $500, that's just, it's too expensive in my eyes. And I don't think there's a great opportunity there. Even though that's the exact kind of card I want to invest in, the price point isn't just there for me. So yeah, I just had a note here. Yeah, there will be a point where the cards I like will become the flavor of the month and probably become overvalued at some point. So I want to what is this? Question number 4. Who is the best AFL grader? At the moment, there's a few people on the market. There's CJ, obviously. PSG has got quite a bit of traction over the past couple of years. I haven't seen their slabs in person. I haven't done any business with them, but it seems like people are loving their service. However, I'm definitely going to stick with CJ. The thing I like about CJ is they were here well before the boom. I'm pretty sure PSG came about in maybe 2020 or 2021. That's just too recent for me. And something that was built within the boom makes me a bit nervous, because it makes me question, will they be able to survive the downturn? Because there always is going to be a downturn. Whereas CJ came about in early 2010s, I think, 2012 or 2014 maybe. They went through a lot of times where no one really cared about sports cards, and they were still doing this. So that shows a passion for it, a love of it, and it shows that they have a long-term view, a long-term focus that isn't based on the boom and bust cycle. So that's what I like about them. They've kind of proved that they can survive through the thick and the thin, and that's what I like about them. However, in saying that, I'm still not sending any of my high-end cards to Australian graders. I'm not getting them graded at all, actually, because I want to get them graded an Australian grader if possible. I'm not a big PSA or Beckett or SGC fan for Australian cards, but at the moment I really don't trust any Australian grading company with cards of that nature. If I had to, if like gun to my head, I had to get them graded, I would get them graded at PSA or SGC as a close second probably. But yeah, that's where I stand at the moment. The 5th question, what are my goals for 2023? So my goals, the same as usual, really. I'm looking at the same cards. I'm looking at cards that I think are undervalued and have great growth potential and are gonna try and give me that 10% a year. That's what I always aim for. Of course, it's not gonna happen all the time. And another huge part of it is the enjoyment of collecting. So I gotta stick with stuff I love, which is 2000s football. Within that, I wanna stick at stuff which is at a reasonable price point. And has a big, deep historical meaning for me and the game in general. So in fact, I'm going to try and consolidate back more into my niche rather than trying to branch out too far. I'm going to sell off all the stuff that I'm kind of like iffy on, or like even 50-60% love. I'd rather just keep and get multiples of the cards that I 100% love, 100% believe in long term, and I think they're in a good price. So that's my thinking coming into 2023. And the final question is, what is the footy card ecosystem and how would you define everyone's roles within it? So first of all, like I said before, Select is kind of all powerful in the footy card industry, which is great because I think they could do a good job, but it's also kind of scary. But yeah, at the end of the day, they are at the top of the food chain and they decide a lot of things. So I think they should be a bit more cognizant of this fact and a bit more communicative of this fact as well. Another person who is very important in this hobby is the rippers, which is the first initial consumer, I think. So it comes down from Select, goes to the rippers, which I see is very much of a consumer. And why is that? Because there's a high risk. You're very likely to lose money as a ripper. So what you're doing in the ecosystem is losing money on average, but you're gaining enjoyment. Like, people love to do it. I'm not a huge fan personally, just because the loss of money, number one, and number two, you don't get the cards you actually want 99% of the time. So I'd rather just go out and buy the singles I actually want. But I definitely do understand why people love it. It's very exciting. It is kind of like a form of gambling. So what these rippers do is they create singles for the market. So the boxes come in, the rippers create singles. I'm not talking about breakers, I'm talking about individual people here, consumers. So they create singles for the markets. Then these singles get funneled into collectors' hands. So collectors is another form of consumer, in my opinion, because most of the time collectors are going to lose money. What they're doing is gaining enjoyment. They're consuming the good, and they're going to lose money, but they love what they collect. So these guys really keep the market afloat. The market wouldn't be around without collectors in there, because people would only be going for certain cards, and 99% of cards wouldn't actually be ever bought, and it just wouldn't work. The whole transition, the movement of card sales just wouldn't happen without collectors who collect their niche stuff. Next is investors, and personally I would define myself as a collector investor. Those are the two big roles I feel. Definitely not a ripper, but investors in general, what they should be doing, what they should be getting out of it is gaining money, not still some enjoyment, but not as much enjoyment as pure collectors or rippers. And that's why I say I'm a collector investor, because I do gain a lot of enjoyment by the stuff I collect as well. But the important part of investors is they create legitimacy for the hobby. This is very important, and I think very understated when people talk about investing and how people kind of like evil investors or wrecking the fun of a hobby. But at the end of the day, investors show that certain cards can retain their value and actually gain their value over time. And this is very important to keeping the whole system running, because if everyone thought, and if history showed, that all cards lost their value in the long run, well then I don't think anyone would, lots of people wouldn't even buy it in the first place. You'd have a very a weak market where there's only people who are just pure collectors in the market. And I don't think that's reasonable to think everyone is 100% pure collector. But I'm going to move on. Next is dealers and stores. Their big role is to facilitate the transaction. So the dealers get the people to get the cards to where they want to go. Like, they facilitate it. They help the market function efficiently. So yeah, they increase liquidity in the market as well. And what they get out of this is money. So they lose the time, and it's probably not the most enjoyable thing, but they do get some money out of it for their contribution to the hobby. And lastly, breakers, which is a new thing. They definitely gain money. They probably gain some of the most money out of anyone in the hobby. But they are facilitators in a different way. Some people can't afford buying a whole box themselves. Some people just don't want to. They want only cards from their own team. So breakers facilitate this need in their own way. But that's my full informal Q&A. Hopefully you enjoyed my first video 2023. And I'm going to be back in Australia soon, so I should be putting out some videos with physical cards. But thanks a lot for listening, and see you next time. Cheers.